All right, let's talk about the Whopper Plopper, the Willie P. All right, my favorite bait in the world is to throw, or the favorite bait in the world to throw is the Whopper Plopper. River to Sea makes many versions of it, but I'm going to tell you first the setup, the rod, reel, the line. Okay, you first want a fast gear ratio reel. I've got a Bass Pro Titan 8 right here. I believe this is an 8-to-1 or 8-to-3 gear ratio reel. You want to take up a lot of line. There's my Johnny Morse Platinum. This is an 8-to-3 gear ratio reel. And what that means in gear ratio, people, is for every full crank of that reel that I make with this reel, full one crank, that spool spins 8.3 times. Now that's a lot of draw on a lot of line. And when you're topwater fishing the Whopper Plopper, you want a fast reel. You don't want to wear yourself out just cranking and cranking and cranking all day long. You want a lot of draw on that spool. I go with a fast gear ratio reel right there. We covered that. Next thing, let's talk about the line. I keep it pretty simple. Whopper Ploppering, really any size of Whopper Plopper. I keep it simple. Open water, not a lot of obstacles in my way, not a lot of rocks to be hit, or zebra mussels, or boat dock cables, or gnarly tree limbs, or stuff like that. 50-pound braid, all right? I use a couple braids. I use Maxima, it's an 8-carrier braid, or I use Bass Pro Braid 8. It's also an 8-carrier braid. Super strong, nearly impossible to break. You got to really try hard to break this line. All right, boat dock cables and zebra mussels are really the only thing that hurt this braid. But that braid is it's very important to use a braid. You want that no stretch, no break kind of stuff. All right, so braided line, and it floats too, so it keeps your bait, the nose up, makes the bait work properly. So braided line. The next thing, as a minimum, all right, we're now in the works with Cash and Rods, designing a brand new Whopper Plopper rod that's a little bit longer than the one I currently use. I use a 7.5 foot medium heavy or heavy flipping stick by Cashin. All right, this particular one is a F90476, a 9476. All right, that's a medium heavy. This one is a 90676, a 676. That's a heavy. I like the heavier with the bigger plugs, the 130 and the 190. But we're coming out with a little longer rod because topwater fishing is all about clear water fishing to me. And I want the longest possible cast I can make. A good reel holds a lot of line like this one does. The braid also lets it fall off my reel. Real simple, simple to cast. I mean, a kindergartner can cast braided line. Simple setup, extremely long cast. A 7.5 foot flipping sticks allows you to do that, but the rod that I'm designing is going to be a little bit longer with a sort of a fast tip, and allows me to get even more distance with my Whopper Plopper, what I want to do. All right, I'm not worried about him hitting me at the end of the strike on that braided line and actually getting a fish in. If I was throwing monofilament, I'd be worried when he hits me on the end of the line if I'm going to get him in with all that stretch in that line. I'm not worried about with braided line. So fast reel, 50 to 65 pound braid. You want the 65, I think I missed that. I want 65 pound braid when I'm fishing like Lake of the Ozarks, boat dock cables, gnarly big rock, concrete pillars for walkways, stuff like that, rebar. I want the biggest line I can. If you want to go to 80, go to 80, it doesn't matter. But so your fast reel, 50 to 65 pound braid, 7.5 foot as a minimum, 7.5 foot flipping stick. All right, now let's talk about the Whopper Ploppers itself. There's a lot of sizes and you're like, what do I do? When do I fish this one and when do I fish that one? I'm a big fan of the 130. That's this particular size right here. All right, these all were made to catch muskie, by the way. That's how this is all come about. And this bass fisherman found out, man, they really like to eat that Whopper Plopper better than I could go muskie fishing and catch a lot more bass on it. Muskie fishermen are like, oh, these dang bass, and they probably want to fillet them, but I don't know. But let's go. Let's talk about the big 190. Now, when would you ever use a 190? As you can see, there's not very many marks on this from me casting it very much. Very few on this one as well. 190 is used in big water, big lakes, Florida stream bass like Lake Fork, Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, outside of grass edges and so on and so forth, and a lot of wind. Or if you go up north and you want to catch some big muskie and pike, you want to go to the 190. But yes, I do have these in my arsenal when I come to the right lakes with the right wind. But most of the time I throw the 130. You think, man, that's a weird looking one there. You know what I did to that? That was a blue, I forget the name of that color. But there was one particular time, but I didn't have enough, or I didn't have a black or a loon whopper plopper with me. I just took a Sharpie to it and dolled it up. You can do that to any of your plugs, by the way. There's just the tip, JMFW Worldwide, just the tip. Carry a Sharpie with you, not only for autographs, but for blacking up plugs. So 130, one I throw more than anything. It's got a distinct plop to it. All these baits have different plops, different sounds, and that's what you want to dictate when you use it. Is when is the wind blowing the hardest? You want the biggest plop and the hardest wind, of course. And then let's say the wind lets off a little bit, and the bait, the size of the bait that you're chasing, that or the bass are chasing around that day, have a lot to do with it too. This is the 110, has a little more subtle plop to it, more of a flutter to it. Plop, 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 plop. For the big plopper, this goes trrr, trrr, more weird sounds. I'm not going to make weird sounds because you're going to make fun of me. But a little more subtle, and guess what? As they get a little bit smaller, they get even more subtle. Here's the 90. Now, I don't throw a 90 very much, but let's say it's slick, calm water, small bait fish, up and run around the bank. The 90 is the weapon of choice. Hey, if you like to wade streams, I can tell you this is an absolute killer if you're kayaking or floating. I love it when it comes to stream fishing. You will blast the big smallmouth on this 90. This too is a very, very subtle flutter, less of a plop. Now, I said, Larry Dahlberg, we need this small one, instead of a flutter sound, I need to plop like our 130 gets. He said, oh, I can fix that. So they come up with the 75. The 75, and you can see the difference on the tails, the size of the tails. There's where all the plop comes from. Again, a great pond, a great floating bait, but you know what? It's pretty dang awesome on big waters like Table Rock Lake. The 75, I just call it the fat boy. You can see how fat it is. The 75, again, I throw this on 50-pound braid most of the time. Big O-tail. It's got a very more distinct plop, kind of like the 130. It's got a great sound to it. So you want to make a little more noise, you go with the 75. So it's all about how much wind is blowing on which bait you're going to throw on that particular day. Just remember that. If it's blowing real hard, you want something noisy. If it's blowing a little softer, throw something a little softer like the 110. If it's not blowing at all and it's pretty slick, then you go to the 130. If it's blowing a little bit and the bait's small, go with the 75. And you want a real deep plop. So that's my rundown on whopper plopper fishing, when to do whichever bait you want.